Spiro Theodore Agnew was never supposed to stand among America's most powerful men. He was not born into wealth, nor did he have the polished Ivy League pedigree of many politicians of his era. Instead, his story began humbly in Baltimore, Maryland, on November 9, 1918. His father, Theophrastos Anagnostopoulos, had immigrated from Greece with little more than a dream, later shortening his name to Agnew to fit into American society. He ran a small diner and worked endlessly, instilling in his son the values of grit, perseverance, and ambition. Agnew's childhood was shaped by this mix of immigrant struggle and American aspiration. He was intelligent but restless, practical rather than bookish. After attending Johns Hopkins University and later earning a law degree from the University of Baltimore, Agnew seemed destined for a modest career as a lawyer. But America was shifting rapidly in the mid-20th century, and men like Agnew, who projected discipline, toughness, and order, would soon find their moment. World War II left its mark on him. As an officer in the U.S. Army, Agnew saw Europe in ruins and learned the cost of weakness, disorder, and chaos. Those experiences forged a worldview that would define his politics: respect for authority, suspicion of radical movements, and a deep belief in the necessity of law and order. After the war, he returned home, married Eleanor Judefind, his lifelong partner, and began raising a family. But something in him craved more than quiet stability. He entered politics, starting at the county level in Baltimore. His rise was steady, almost unlikely, but Agnew possessed a quality that resonated with voters. He was blunt, direct, and unafraid to speak harsh truths. In 1966, against the odds, he won the governorship of Maryland. For Republicans in a Democratic stronghold, this was a remarkable feat. Agnew cast himself as a reformer, a man of principle. But it was his handling of civil unrest that made him a national figure. When riots broke out in Baltimore following Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination in 1968, Agnew condemned black leaders for failing to stop the violence. His words were sharp, controversial, and polarizing, but they resonated with a growing segment of white middle-class Americans who felt society was spinning out of control. That same year, Richard Nixon was seeking a vice presidential candidate. He needed someone who could speak to the silent majority. Those millions of Americans tired of protests, campus sit-ins, and what they saw as moral decay. Agnew, the tough-talking governor, fit the role. Almost overnight, his life transformed. He was plucked from relative obscurity and placed on the national stage as Nixon's running mate. The Nixon-Agnew ticket won in a landslide. Suddenly, Spiro Agnew, the son of a diner owner, was the vice president of the United States. Agnew relished the role. He was no ceremonial figure. He became Nixon's attack dog. While Nixon preferred strategy and secrecy, Agnew became the administration's voice. His speeches were blistering. He denounced the press as nattering nabobs of negativism. He mocked intellectuals, activists, and the anti-war movement. He portrayed himself as the champion of ordinary Americans, and to millions, he became exactly that. By 1972, after Nixon's re-election, Agnew's popularity was so great that some saw him as Nixon's natural successor. His name was whispered as a possible presidential candidate for 1976. The boy from Baltimore had become a symbol of conservative America's strength. But beneath the speeches and applause, shadows gathered. The FBI had begun investigating whispers from Maryland. Contractors alleged that while Agnew served as county executive and governor, he accepted bribes in exchange for political favors. The claims were shocking enough, but investigators discovered something worse. The payments hadn't stopped. Even as vice president, Agnew was allegedly accepting envelopes of cash, discreetly passed to him inside the very halls of government. The Justice Department wrestled with the dilemma. Could the Vice President of the United States, just a heartbeat away from the presidency, really be indicted? All this was unfolding as the Nixon administration itself was consumed by Watergate. The nation was already in crisis. The case against Agnew grew undeniable. The IRS uncovered tax evasion. The FBI built files of testimony and evidence. In 1973, the news broke the vice president was under criminal investigation. At first, Agnew fought like a cornered animal. He thundered in public, calling the accusations a witch hunt. He portrayed himself as a victim of political persecution, insisting prosecutors were out to destroy him because he dared to challenge the establishment. His fiery defiance stirred his supporters. But behind the scenes, reality closed in. Prosecutors laid out their evidence. Witnesses described the payoffs in detail. Agnew's financial records told a damning story. The prospect of a criminal trial and a prison sentence was real. On October 10, 1973, Spiro Agnew walked into a federal courtroom. In a stunning deal, he pleaded no contest to a single charge of tax evasion. In exchange, the bribery charges were dropped. He was fined a $10,000, sentenced to probation, and forced to resign as vice president. The announcement shocked the nation. Just months earlier, Agnew had stood as one of the most powerful men in America, a potential future president. Now he left office in disgrace, only the second vice president in history to resign. His fall was breathtaking not just for its speed, but for its timing. As Nixon fought for survival amid Watergate, his vice president had already been undone by scandal. America watched in disbelief as both of its top leaders crumbled under the weight of corruption. Agnew never returned to politics. He withdrew into a quieter life, dabbling in business and writing books. He continued to insist he had been wronged, claiming he was the victim of overzealous prosecutors. But the public never forgave him. His name became shorthand for political disgrace, a warning of how arrogance and corruption can destroy even the most promising careers. In the 1980s, FBI records revealed that threats against Agnew's life had persisted long after his resignation. Evidence of how deeply divisive he remained. He lived in semi-seclusion until 1996, when he died at the age of 77. At his funeral, few dignitaries attended. Nixon himself, by then disgraced, sent only a note of condolence. Agnew's story is not just about one man's downfall. It is about the fragility of trust in leadership. His rise reflected the fears and desires of Americans in a turbulent era. His fall revealed how personal greed and secrecy can corrode the foundations of power. Once, Spiro Agnew seemed destined for greatness. Some believed he might have become president. Instead, his name became a cautionary tale, a reminder that power, no matter how high, can crumble overnight when integrity is sacrificed in the shadows.